Hello everyone, welcome to the live stream. It's time, let's go! How's everyone doing? Take a nap, I'll be here lurking. I'll make sure not to play any jump scares for you, Karina, I got you. No jump scares, even though it's Halloween, no jump scares in today's live stream. Well, we'll see. Tomorrow is the day. Tomorrow, Novella November officially kicks off. Novella November means that when we do these live streams, they will be a little bit more structured. I maybe won't be doing any Halloween candy tier lists like I did yesterday's stream. Of course, it'll still be fun. But it's going to be a little bit more structured to give everyone time to write. And we're going to have a little bit of extra time at the end of each stream so that everyone can share their progress, talk about, how many words they got down. Are they stuck on anything that we can discuss to maybe unstick them in their story? And then, I'm really excited to say we have the Novella November live stream sponsored, meaning I don't have to run any ads through the sponsor that may interrupt your music, interrupt your writing, things like that. That's important to me for two reasons. One, it's a lot of time to do the live stream, and so it's nice to be able to make a teeny tiny little bit of money on it. But also, I feel like it's just a better watching experience if you don't get hit with an ad right in the middle of writing something that takes your attention away from what you're doing or makes you have to mute the live stream, whatever the case may be. So excited for that. I'll be announcing that tomorrow. How's everyone's planning going? Does anyone feel like they're ready to write? Or do we have anyone here who is still, what would the right word be? Terrified to begin. I feel pretty good. How are you guys feeling? Jeff says, Halloween, better go buy some candy while it's still okay. Hey, if you go in the next couple days, you can get it discounted. One time after Valentine's Day, went to the grocery store. I bought like 8 bags of those those Valentine candy hearts. Just put them in the console of my car. While I was driving, just pop the console open, get a few candy hearts, close it. That was a good year. I think I spent like $8 for like 8 pounds of those candy hearts. Good year. Personally, I'm feeling pretty good. I don't feel the need to plan everything out in my story before I start writing. I like to plan past the inciting incident, kind of like Act 1, right? So that's going to be like 25% of your story-ish, depending on what plot framework that you're following. Karina's already editing their first chapter. That's awesome. Keep up the progress. Keep up the writing. I would love by the end of November for us to be able to have a whole party of we finished our proto draft. Let's celebrate. Fingers crossed. When I'm planning, I don't feel the need to plan every single thing out in my novel, but I do like to have big moments sort of spread out that are always like my guideposts to where I need to be at this point of the novel. And I'm getting there. Let me share my screen here. I'll show you what I got going on here. If you have only made it so far to Tuesday's live stream that we did earlier this week, then my Scrivener file is going to look a lot different. When we were on Tuesday, I was typing out a little bit of this plot dump. I was jotting down all the notes about what exactly happens in the crime of my novel. Wolfie, hey, welcome to the live stream. Glad to have you here. I was writing down the kind of clues my characters are gonna find. And since then, I went out and I found a mystery novel plot framework that I'm just using the most basic plot framework to figure out how I need to sort of disperse the events of my novel. And then I'm taking that and I'm combining it with a plot framework I already feel really comfortable with, just something like a 3-act kind of structure, where I can break down the different parts of my story into different inciting incidents, different points of conflict and climax and resolutions. But yeah, I did find this little thing on this website by author Zara Altair, I believe is how you pronounce it. I'm also combining in the Romancing the Beat plot framework, which is for romance novels. I'd like to include a romance subplot in this story. So I'm picking and choosing things out of this that are going to be happening throughout my novel as I write. Wolvie, doing good, doing good. This is the last day to plan before we start writing for Novella November. So today is all about sort of making sure we're prepared. Something else you might not have seen since our last time is I went through and I cast all my characters. This is something I like to do. I know a lot of people like to do this. Find images to represent the different characters that I have in my story. Kind of helps me create a more distinctive cast of characters. Ted Danson, shout out. Shout out Ted Danson, you're my homie. Got all these different characters sort of all cast. And so at this point, all I have left to plan is however much of our sort of, plot framework that I might want to have prepared. Wolfie says they couldn't make it to the other live streams because it was so late. You know, I'm trying to make sure I spread them out so that we have people from all over the world able to join. I recognize most of my viewers are from the US, but we have such an awesome group of people who are in our Discord community, active, you know, putting in the work to like help this community grow that aren't in the US. And so of course I want to try to accommodate that. So I'm trying my best, fingers crossed. I hope you can make some future ones. Painting Games Anything I Don't Know says, hello, it's been a while. Taking a backhand with Warhammer in college. Totally get it. Totally get it. Feel free to join us for Novella November, though, as we're starting tomorrow to write and finish a story in the month of November. So that's about where I'm at. I wanted to start this live stream by talking about the writing tool that I'm using. I'm writing with Scrivener here. You may have heard about Scrivener before as a writing tool, but maybe you don't fully understand what makes it any different than something like a Microsoft Word, or whether it's something different from like a Google Docs. I'm going to take just 5 or 10 minutes and very quickly talk about the features of Scrivener, why I use it. I have an affiliate link in the Discord that you can use if you want to check it out. And if you are interested in trying this out, you don't want to commit to any sort of monetary payment, the free trial that Scrivener has is awesome. It gives you the whole product for 30 days, which conveniently, that's like the whole month of November. And that is 30 days that you are using the product, not just 30 days from when you install it. So you can take breaks. You say, I'm not going to write this week and pick it up next week, and that doesn't count in your 30 days, if that makes sense. I highly recommend you check it out, especially if you want to take writing a little bit more seriously. Investing in the right tools is the right move. So let's talk about Scrivener. If you are currently writing in something like Microsoft Word, Microsoft Word is the industry standard text editor. It's great at formatting your words. It's a great writing experience. You can make it look really nice. Google Docs, fantastic when it comes to being able to share things. A pretty standard text editor, not as fully featured as Microsoft Word, but you can get your words down. Both of those tools, where they fail is organization. So when you're writing your story, maybe you have pages that are just dedicated to, you know, I'm going to have this page be all the list of my characters' names. And then I'm going to go to the next page. This is where I'm going to type information about my settings. And then the next page, I'm going to start writing my story. Maybe you've done something like that. Maybe you have entirely different organizations of files and you're opening different ones up for different things. Scrivener, where Scrivener shines is 3 specific places. 3 very specific places Scrivener is better than all the other tools. The first thing is being able to organize your story with a bunch of different folders and files. So over here, I wish I could zoom in a little bit. I have like a characters folder, and inside there I have my main characters. where I have all those organized, and each one of those files has the actual information about my characters. And the same thing for the different places in my story. And the same thing for any sort of notes I want to keep. And the same thing for any sort of research. Like, for example, that mystery plot framework, I uploaded this entire web page into Scrivener as a file that I can access even when I'm offline. It's all cached the information. I can open this up if I'm at the coffee shop and I don't have any internet or whatever the case may be. Scrivener, awesome at that. Very versatile. Whether you like planning things in something like a note card kind of situation, whether you want to do outlines, maybe you don't like the rigidity of putting everything on a grid. You can choose to save all your stuff and group these little note cards together. Or you can even put them on different timelines if you have a story that's kind of non-linear. That's what Scrivener is good for. Let me bring this back over here. That's what Scrivener is good for. The writing experience in Scrivener, awesome. Just as good as a Microsoft Word. So the files are super accessible. Files are super easily used and switched between. And then we have the writing experience. You have all the different styles that you might use if you need to format your story like that, or you can just write it and have each folder be a different chapter and each little scene be a different part of your scene separated by scene breaks. Karina says, do you keep links for resources like this in the Discord? I do. Specifically for this, I put a message in the November Hangout and I pinned it. And I think that means if you scroll to the top of your screen in the Discord in the November Hangout, you can see it there. I have a bot that's always listening to that says, if you've said the word Scrivener, here's the affiliate link. So I have those around here. Now, what is the third way that Scrivener really shines? Scrivener is really great when it comes to compiling. That is when you are done writing your story. Now, you can output your story in PDF, Microsoft DocX, but you can also output your story all formatted, all nice with the title page, with copyright stuff if you need to, with your prologue or your epilogue or your about the author, into EPUB. So that's the e-reader format, so you can very easily get your story onto a Kindle and go read it over there as you're editing. Let me show you what that looks like real fast. Go to recent projects. I'll open up Starlight Farm's Kennel for Talking Dogs, my Scrivener file for that book. Here's how I organized everything. We have the, what did I put? I have everything broken up into different acts and different chapters over here. And then actually what I have going on right now, open this. There we go. I can go into the manuscript. I can go to File and Compile. And then I get all kinds of different settings for how I want this output to look. So like I printed Starlight Farm's Kennel for Talking Dogs in a trim size. That's the size of your book. At 5 1/4 inches by 8 inches. That's the size of the actual book that I'm holding here. And so I made a format that outputs that story that I've typed into all of its different chapters. With chapter 1, here's the name of the chapter, here's the text, at the right size, with the font that I wanted, formatted how I like. And then I can compile it into PDF. I can compile it into DocX. I could put it into a web page if I wanted, Markdown, EPUB, or Kindle. And it's just like a one-click kind of thing, right? So I can click compile. Oops, I need this to be here. I can click compile and save this. Put it, example, output. Click that button. It's gonna take all my text, put it into a PDF super easily. Break up all the chapters for me. There's all kinds of settings in here you can tweak. And then I'm gonna have a PDF of my story. And this one's like 300 pages, so awesome. Wolby says, Reedsy can do these things too and it's free, plus you can add a co-author to your book. May not be as good as Scrivener, but it's a really good free alternative. Scrivener is not the only thing that can compile, but it is, in my opinion, the best standalone full-featured option for something like this. I am a big fan of Readsy though. Readsy as a web platform for writers is probably the best that we have for creative writers. But when it comes to sitting down, planning, and writing your novel, I think Scrivener's pretty much the top tier. So here you can see my output on the PDF. I have every single page. Everything's formatted. We have our different, let's get to a chapter here. We have our page breaks and where our chapters pick up, all kinds of stuff. So that's where Scrivener shines. Let me tell you where Scrivener falls short. It's not perfect. Let me tell you where Scrivener falls short. If you need the ability to collaborate with other people on the same document, Scrivener is not going to be able to ever be as good as like a Google Docs. If you need the ability to work on the same story on different machines, like let's say I wanted to write on my laptop here, but then also I'm on a road trip, I'm in the passenger seat, someone else is driving, and I want to open up an app on my phone and continue writing that story, Scrivener does not have that same capability. Maybe in the future, it'll be cloud-based, but right now it is very much on your local machine. There are things you can do, like saving your story into the Google Drive, but it's not necessarily meant for that sort of access it anywhere, collaboration style writing. So I don't do that kind of writing. I want something that is fully locally hosted so I can work offline. And you know what? Google Docs has the capability to be an offline text editor and an online text editor. Microsoft Word, pretty much a local machine with the capabilities to save on the cloud, access from different machines. If you need that functionality, Scrivener not going to be the right tool for you. Now, on the other side, and this is the last thing I'll say about it, on the other side, Scrivener is a one-time payment and you have it. It's not a monthly thing. You pay, I think it's $60 maybe, if I'm remembering off the top of my head, and you have Scrivener. And your license key works for a couple different installations. So I actually have Scrivener installed here on my laptop in the Mac version. I have it installed on my desktop in my other room. That's like my kind of like gaming computer that I've written on there. In the Windows installation, my key still installs that. And I had it on like a Microsoft Surface where I used to do a lot of writing. And so that one $60 key did allow me to do multiple installs, multiple systems. Totally fine. And I'm a big fan of a pay one time, just get the product kind of thing. That being said, if Scrivener does do a major upgrade, which the last one that they did was in 2017, when we went from Scrivener 2 to Scrivener 3 on the Mac, that brought all the new features. You did have to pay to do that upgrade, but it was 50% off if you had the previous version. So it was like paying $30 to further support a tool that you really like. So that's that. That's all I'll say about Scrivener. That's the quick rundown. There's, of course, other features I'm not touching on. There's, of course, other downsides I'm sure that are out there that I'm not touching on. But for what I think you need to know to decide whether or not you would like to use Scrivener, I think those are all the most important things. Again, I recommend doing the free trial. I don't think you even have to enter credit card information to use the free trial. It's only when, so you install the machine, or you install Scrivener. It has like a 30-day counter. When that 30 days is up, you can choose to go buy a license key. They email it to you. You plug it into this little pop-up and you have it. So I think that is a great way to go about it. I love the one-time payment. You have all the information you now need to see whether or not you want to try it, or whether the lack of cloud saving or collaboration is the deal breaker. Yeah, Wolfie says the biggest negative for Readsy is that you have to be on the internet. There's a lot of cloud-based, browser-based writing tools. NovelPad is one we've worked with in the past that are super awesome. But if you want to be able to write offline, it's a little bit more difficult. Some tools still allow it, some other ones don't. Paint Games, I don't know anything, says I mostly just write every now and then. Flexibility of Word and Google Docs are king. This is definitely the tool that you invest in when you want to do writing as a more serious kind of endeavor, right? This is a much heavier tool than opening up Google Docs. It has those different robust capabilities because that's sort of what you're trying to, that's kind of what you're going for, is you're going for that more specific, robust tool for writers. Done with the Scrivener sales pitch. That's all I got. You guys have any questions about it? Anything, anyone curious about Scrivener still? You got any questions? Otherwise, we're gonna get into story planning. All right, well then, that being said, I'll answer them if anything comes up, but otherwise, I think it's time to get into our final preparations for Novella November. Maybe you should move your career to a salesman. Never really been one for sales. It's been a learning curve doing the content creation thing. Not a big salesman, I don't think. I'm just giving you the information. But if you do want to try it, affiliate links in the Discord, and that helps me out. Thank you. All right. So here's the deal. This is meant to be a productive stream. So what we're going to do, I'm going into my plot framework. I'm going to put 15 minutes on the timer. And we're going to do some planning. I highly recommend, if you feel like you are about ready to start writing for Novella November, if you're ready to put words down on the page, do it. If you feel like you're not ready, what do you need to do in order to get there? Tomorrow we start writing. I'm going to take full advantage of the time that we have. So tomorrow I'm putting words on the page. I'm not doing it until tomorrow. Today, I'm getting as far as I can in my plot framework in this little story beat sheet I'm creating here. Tomorrow, I'm so excited to start writing. I just want to get words on the page. I've been excited to start writing for a while, but I've been holding off so I can do it all on stream. So here's the deal. I got to fix my camera real fast. It's a little too low. And then we're going to start. All right, we ready. We back. We in this. All right, I'm going to set the timer and we're going to get started planning. I will see you guys on the other side. Good luck, everyone. Turning the microphone off, turning the music up. See you in 15 minutes. All right. First little planning sprint done. I'm getting excited about my story. How'd you guys do? I see we got, I've always wondered this. Is it Nian? And we got Stray Bubble here. Welcome, guys. So glad to see you here. This is the live stream. You haven't missed much. We did a brief little talk about Scrivener and what Scrivener is good for. If you're interested in trying it, you can find the recording after this is done. And we've also talked about what if there's certain features that you want in your writing tool. There are some things that Scrivener is not great at. Nian as a Neanderthal. You know what? Once we get an answer, I don't think I could have phrased it any better. Is it Nian as a Neanderthal? So we talked a little bit about Scrivener. We talked about being excited for Novella November, about tomorrow we start writing. Yeah, I'm just excited for it. I got some cool things I'm gonna share with the Discord tomorrow. Some things sort of along the line. Not like the otters. I like that. We have some things along the lines of sponsorship for the live streams, which is super exciting. But also tomorrow, we have a Discord partnership that we're unveiling for the month of November that I think some of you might really like. I'm excited to share it with you guys. So that's what's happening tomorrow. Anyone here still planning their novel? Let me know what you were able to get done or not in the comments. Whether or not you feel ready to write, whether you still need some more planning. Stray Bubble, do you feel ready to write tomorrow for the official start to Novella November? You feel prepared? I feel like I'm itching to write. Like all this plot framework stuff, I'm trying to just like get ahead of my own questions. But like I am ready to put words down on the page because that's way more exciting than planning. That's when you start to find out about your characters and whether or not all of these kind of decisions that you make in the planning stage even pay off. This guy says, prepared. I feel perplexed. Why do you feel perplexed? What's happening? Do you feel like you just don't know how to tackle a larger project? Because, you know, it is always a little easier to plan and write something like a short story, like what we do for our writing challenges, than it is to do something that's 50, 60, 70,000 words. Jeff says, still planning. I've been inactively planning for months. I call that passive planning. Passive planning, I think, sounds better than inactively planning. First real attempt at solidifying something onto paper. Nice, that's awesome. I am a big fan of passive planning. This what we're doing, like what I'm doing on stream right now is active planning. This is like I'm sitting down and I am going to figure out my characters and plot and setting. I don't normally approach writing like that. I'm more of I have this idea for the story. You know, a couple of days later, I'm out like watering the garden and I'm like, oh, this would be a cool thing to add to the story. Let me like think about that a little bit more. And then later I'm like, oh, this kind of character would really fit in well here. Like, let me think about that a little bit more. And then by the time I feel confident enough to like start really kind of like approaching the story, ready to do something on it, I have so many of those details kind of already figured out, as opposed to sitting down here and actively planning. So Jeff, I totally get it. I am the same way. Dribble says, I got a very rough proto draft done. Nice, dude. That's awesome. Is this 69, hey, welcome to the chat. Welcome. I remember hearing there's one author that dictates everything he thinks while hiking mountains. Oh, I have great news for you. That is, what was his name? He's sold like 15 million books. Hold on, I'm gonna pull up his name. 69 is talking about, he also writes the Dune books with Frank Herbert's son now. What's his name? Kevin J. Anderson. You know, it's funny that you bring that up, 69. Kevin J. Anderson is an author who dictates all of his books. And like the first draft of all of his books are done through dictation. And so he takes a voice recorder. Nowadays you could just use your phone. And he lives out in Colorado. And he goes walking through the mountains. And just like he has a couple note cards about like, you know, here's this chapter, here's kind of what it's supposed to start as, here's where we're supposed to finish, here's the big things that we're supposed to do. And he walks through the mountains and hikes and just talks his story aloud and does 2 or 3 chapters a day as he's hiking, and then comes down and they get all transcribed, and then he does some editing to tighten it up. I'm doing a writing book breakdown on his writing book, How to Be a Dictator or something like that. Is some funny title. Yeah, there's something here. I'm interested in trying some dictation, and you'll see tomorrow I have a really cool opportunity for us to all explore. Kevin J. Anderson. Hold on. Let me get all my stuff squared away again. Straight Bubble says, I've been mentally planning for days now. Yeah, I mean, especially when you know you're going to start writing on like November 1st. Like, it's in your head. It's been in my head for like 2-3 weeks that I've been like, okay, like I need to figure out some things. Like, how is this thing going to work? How's this other thing going to work before I actually get here to put something down? Jeff says, what I have up to this point is mostly world building with a little bit of character art thing. Yeah, world building, definitely depending on your genre, arguably should come first with a lot of stuff. Like if you're writing science fiction or fantasy, I think Brandon Sanderson's the one who says like the defining fact of science fiction and fantasy is the world that it takes place in. If you take your story and your characters out of a fantasy world, it's no longer fantasy. It's like the de facto thing. So if you're writing a story like that, definitely lots of focus there. But yeah, you got to get some of that character stuff down before you start writing too. Trey says, mine's going to get really emotional. Tears will be shed. Look, if you are crying while writing it, there's a way better chance your audience is going to cry while reading it. When I was finishing up the conclusion to Starlight Farms, there's a couple scenes there that had me like feeling really bad writing. You know, when you have a character you bring to life and then you make their life more difficult, that's rough. That's rough, get it? And then like the happy ending, I'm like sobbing. I'm like, oh, happily ever after. 69 says, can't wait for the Tessa Mind Leak where I can beam my thoughts onto the page. We're getting there. We're getting there. Just Guy says, is it cheating if I've thought of the story for a while? Just considering if I should finally get to it. You should look at the first and second live stream that I did. I talk about this story has been sort of on the back burner in my brain for like 5 years. When me and my wife went to vacation in Alaska, we went through Whittier, Alaska to go do a nature wildlife cruise. And visiting Whittier, Alaska, I was like, there is a story here. There is like a story to be told here. And so I've been kind of mulling over that story for years, but I've never taken the steps to write it. So I figured it would be a good time now, Novella November, to get that down. So I'm definitely not cheating. We have plenty of people who are taking stories that they're in the middle of writing. In Novella November, they're just going to really put that effort and focus into bringing that proto draft closer to completion. Not cheating at all. You could even, if you are in the middle of a story, don't feel the need to start a brand new one. I chose to do that. I'm working on another story right now, but I chose to put that on hold, write this one, put it out in the world, and then go back to what I'm writing. Wolfie says, can I know what each column means? So this is nothing super special or fancy. I just found this is a good way to organize things. This is just a simple table, right? On the left side, I have the name of a story beat that I'm trying to identify. And then I have something called storyline A and storyline B. You may have heard about this before. If you haven't, storyline A are the like action events of your novel, right? So think like Indiana Jones. Let's say like the third Indiana Jones movie, if you've ever seen that. Storyline A is that we're trying to find the Holy Grail, right? Indiana and his father have all these clues to go find and bring home the Holy Grail and how magic it is and how to get past all these traps. That's storyline A, the action of your story. Storyline B is sort of the journey and the series of events that contribute to sort of like the character changing. Storyline B is like the emotional, human side of your story. That's how I always like to say it. It's the human change. This is a pretty popular way to go about planning a story, to have both storyline A and storyline B. In Indiana Jones, storyline B is Indiana wanting to be accepted and acknowledged by his father is not just like a burden or a kid, but like with respect. And so at the beginning of the movie, he's only ever called Junior. And at the very end of the movie, he's reaching for the Holy Grail, putting his life in danger. His father's reaching down to save him. And he says to him, Indiana, the first time he's ever called him Indiana Jones, take my hand, right? And it's that's the journey between wanting that from your father, wanting that respect, wanting that acknowledgement, all the things that they went through, and finally culminates at the end of the story with storyline B's conclusion. Now his father respects him. Two storylines. You pretty much always want to understand both of them. You don't have to plan them out like this. I'm filling this out based on two plot frameworks that I put together down here, right? These things, part 1, setup 10%, part 2, discovery, part 3, funnel, and then part 4, conclusion, all come from a plot structure, plot framework that I found online. Very basic for mystery novels. I took this and I just modified it to better fit my story. Chiku says, your stream is cursed. Whenever I try to watch while working, I get a call. That's so sad. I'm so sorry that you have to deal with calls. No one wants a call. Not for work, not even in my personal life. Don't call me. Sorry that happened. I'm trying to work out the kinks for an adventuring party the main character befriends. They all have issues. That's a fun kind of thing to write. Don't add too many characters. That's my big thing to say to you, Stray. But knowing what kind of story you're trying to tell, the hard thing there would be to add too many characters, and now it's either 1 or 2 characters have the focus and 1 or 2 characters are ignored, or they don't get enough focus as a whole. So keep your party small. That's my advice to you. So storyline A is the events of your novel. So I took that plot framework and I kind of broke down in each one of my parts. Here's like a couple of things. Party of 3, love it. Here's like the kind of things I need to be done to tell my story. And now I've put them into this little table and I'm just expanding on them with like, here's exactly what's going to happen in the book to accomplish that story beat. And I'm doing the same thing with my storyline B, which is going to be a romantic subplot from the Romancing the Beat story structure. I did a great video, if I do say so myself, on what this book is. Find it in my writing book breakdowns, Romancing the Beat, how to write a romance story, even if you don't really write romance. Here's like the things you need to do to like have characters who start to connect, who go through some conflict, and then end up together at the end in a satisfying way. So I took most of these little story beats and I put them as my storyline B, right? So now at the very top of my table, all of the actual action-y events of the novel is storyline A, and storyline B is when I'm going through and making sure that my 2 characters in this romantic subplot have the chance to connect, have the chance to sort of deny each other, have the chance to feel like they're stuck in this together, have the chance to develop feelings, have that relationship tested, come through for each other in the end. A romantic subplot does not mean you are writing a romance, but just about every, especially every Hollywood story has this idea of a romantic subplot. I think us as like social humans like to see two characters develop some sort of rapport together, have it tested, and then overcome that. So it kind of is up to you as the author for how much romance focused you want this to be. Mine's not going to be overtly that romancy, but I do want these two characters to connect and have good chemistry, to then lose faith in each other, and then to come back together. That's why I'm using that plot framework. All right, we have any questions before we go into another little planning sprint? Probably gonna do 2 more sprints. And then do some hangout and talking about some tips and tricks for Novella November. Everyone doing good? Doing good? Is Nian? Now I'm almost saying Neanderthal, which I don't want to say. I wonder if they're still in the chat. I want to know what Nian is writing about. All right, I'm almost done with the inciting incident and what happens after for my story planning. After that point, a lot of times I wouldn't go through and plan every single thing out. I'd start writing, and then the lessons I learned along the way help me plan out parts 2 and 3. So we'll see if I go past that. Wolfie says, I might not connect to this, but any tips for making background story? There is a character I want to make it for, I just can't start it. Well, Wolfie, when you say background story, is this you building depth into your character who then you're going to write about in an actual story? Or is the background story the story you want to tell in whether or not it's Novella November or whether or not it's some other big work? Because those are 2 different things. Sometimes you build a background story for a character so that you, the author, understand them better as you write them, right? So like, I have my main character, Adam Harlow, over here. I don't have a ton of stuff in here. I have where he worked before. I have the struggles that he had, his sort of main flaw he's trying to overcome. That's kind of all that I do. So what's the purpose for your background story? Let me know. In the meantime, I'll be looking for that. Feel good about the clues. I feel good about the crime. I think I'm going to be able to get to part 2 in this next little sprint. All right, Wolfie, I'll be looking for that chat, but we're going to go ahead and start our next sprint for planning. And yeah, I'll see you guys on the other side. 15 more minutes. Let's get our last planning in. All right, I'll give you a quick answer, Wolfie. So why is he actually fighting? Why is he a castaway in his family and by race? Let's revisit that. Let me think on it. All right, 15 minutes on the timer. Time to vibe. Music going up on a Thursday. Let's do it. Mic's going off. Music's going up. right, we are back. All right, got some good planning done. I figured while I'm here, I might as well keep putting in the time, keep expanding on the plot, keep filling out this little table. How'd everyone else do? The chicken is here at last. Chicken man, let's go! 59 says, I rolled a dice on what idea to write, and I guess I'm also doing a mystery now. Probably not a murder, maybe a disappearance. Planned out the setup. Nice. Nice, yeah. Make sure you don't bite off too much. Is that the right way to say that? Bite off too much to chew? What? You know what I'm talking. You know what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying. I did see in the chat we had a question from AE. Adobe After Effects themselves came in. Says, is this how you wrote your first book, or is this a new outlining style? That's a really good question. The great news about that question is I can show you exactly what planning that I did. I can show you, Katie, welcome back. I can show you exactly what kind of planning I did for Starlight Farms because I have it on this Scrivener file on this computer. So here's the deal. What you see in my Novella November planning that I'm doing here, this idea of this table that I'm doing, this is new for me. In another story that I'm working on, not the Novella November one, but another one, I did this, and I ended up kind of liking this idea of putting everything into a table, and I found it really beneficial. In the last Novella November that I did, or sorry, the Starlight Farms, where are you at? Here you are. Let me show you what kind of planning I did instead, because I have it all here. I did very much a very standard plot framework, plot structure. And you gotta remember, this original Starlight Farms Kennel for Talking Dogs, which you can find in the description below, was a very standard, take an idea, write out a plot, like dump, just get everything out of your brain in as much or as little detail as possible, but get something start to finish, and then put it into a plot framework. And so for that book, this is what I did. And you can see it all exactly here. I actually put together also an entire story breakdown as I was writing this. I released that out through my newsletter on my website. It might be fun one live stream to go through and talk about everything that went into writing this book. So keep that in mind for other times. But for the planning of this, I took I can't remember if it was like an 8-act story structure, 8-point story structure, something like that. But basically planned out sort of 8 big moments of the story. And that's it, right? So I had the introduction, the zone of comfort. Now, these were all called chapters, but my book has like 50 chapters, much like 50 small chapters, not 8. So you can ignore the idea that this says chapter. But when planning Starlight Farms Kennel for Talking Dogs, I basically just said like, okay, here's how the story starts. And then here's our inciting incident. Boom. Okay. Right? And this was just, I took a brain dump that I wrote, and I can't remember if I have that over here somewhere. I think I have the whole brain dump in that story breakdown. But then I just kind of shoved it into this plot framework. Then I had Act 2, the conflict. Here is our unfamiliar situation. Here's how they try to adapt. Then Act 3, we had, here is where things look like they're gonna work out. And then here's how it all goes to crap, right? And then conclusion, we all seem really down. Everything's ruined. Things are gonna be really bad. In stories, they call this the dark night of the soul. Let's go back to things being good, things being happy. And then here's everything that changed. That was all the planning that I did for Starlight Farms Kennel for Talking Dogs. And every other bit of detail just came out in writing the story. Now, I'm doing a little bit more verbose planning. I have not confirmed whether or not I'm going to enjoy this as much. But putting it into a table means I can have the storyline A, storyline B sort of thing, both being planned out concurrently. I didn't do that in Starlight Farms, and instead kind of just relied on natural storytelling to be like, here's this character and their flaw and what they need to overcome. And by the end of the story, here's how they did that. I just kind of use like the natural like progression of the story and my own writing knowledge to do that. It's nice to have a storyline be kind of further outlined. So that's the difference. I was trying something new. That's what Novella November is all about. Stray Bubble says, I may try the physical note card method. I think that's awesome. We had someone post in the Discord there. I think they did. I can't remember. Post out how they're writing everything down on note cards and being able to put them up and switch them around and make changes and have like the nice physical story map. You can do that in software, but that's not ever nearly as fun. Chicken Man says, how many words are you going for? I saw that, Chicken Man. You can't hide that. Adobe After Effects says, that's very interesting. My outlines are very similar to your first one. Did you have problems with the original style? Or are you switching it up just for fun? I think just about at this point in my writing career, I think it would be smartest for me to try a different style of planning with every new story. I think that's important because if I were to go with the same method that I did for Starlight Farms, which worked for me, I was able to plan enough and then discover more along the way as I was writing. That felt really comfortable to me. But I think it's important at this sort of like, as you're still in the early stages of your career of finishing and putting things out for writing, to try those new things. There's just too many different potential options out there that could be better for you. I think you gotta take the risk. So for me, just for fun, is maybe out of those two. There was nothing wrong with the original style, but yeah, for me, I'm gonna be still trying new things, probably until I have like 6 books out in the world. I feel like every time you write a book, like I learned so much writing Starlight Farms Kennel for Talking Dogs. I learned an incredible amount. So now I'm able to sort of like start at a higher kind of level, and the idea that like, you know, I did a lot of good, but I also made some mistakes. But I can take all those good things I learned and try to avoid all those same mistakes as I'm starting my next project. I'm not starting from scratch anymore. I'm a little bit more experienced, right? And I think you gain even more experience by continuing to try those new things. So this is new for me. I'll let you know at the end of the whole process how I feel about it. But the question, what kind of word count are you going for? I originally put down 70,000 words, but then I stopped myself and I said, why? Why am I... Thank you for using Adobe today. That's good. I originally put down 70,000 words as sort of my goal. See if I wrote it down here. And then I stopped myself and I said, why am I trying to hit such a high number as the goal? I'd rather set my goal much lower. And if I naturally want to tell a longer story, I would rather overwrite than potentially set my goal too high and not hit it, but still feel like, you know, I said everything I wanted to say and it was 60,000 words. But does that mean I failed because my goal was 70,000 words? Aim lower. It's probably the right call. So I'm shooting for 50,000 words now. Yeah. So Stray says, yeah, I also put my potential word count at 50,000. I feel very confident I can hit 50,000 words. Starlight Farms ends up being like 55,000 words maybe. And I feel like the story that I'm telling here has a lot more ground to cover. So I feel like there's always going to be a very clear next thing I can write about, and I won't have to try to pad a number or stretch something out in order to meet this imaginary goal I set for myself in my own head, where there's no punishment for not hitting 70,000. It just seemed I wanted to put it lower. 59 says, I'm estimating 30,000, but I go by scene count rather than word count. Great approach. If that works better for you. I'll tell you, one of the first things is I'm looking at this part 1 setup of this story. And naturally in my head, if I'm aiming at 50,000 words and I'm using these splits that this plot framework talks about using, I want to do all of these things. And it seems like 5,000 words is going to be way too little for me to be able to set up this novel how I want to in my head. Now, you're probably going to encounter something like this. So let me go ahead and tell you what's going on in my mind as I look about this, right? Because first off, plot framework, it's a guideline. There's literally nothing stopping me from saying, you know what, part 1, act 1 of my story is going to be 25% of my whole story. And now this 5,000 words now goes up to 12,500, I think. 25% of 50,000. Oh God, my brain. And that seems more realistic for me. When I'm looking at all the things I typed out in this part 1 plot framework, maybe that's the kind of word count I'd rather try to strive for in setting up my novel. So if you're looking at a plot framework and you have these same kind of concerns, like, you know, this isn't quite lining up how it is in my head, make changes. Make changes. Also, remember this. This is huge. This is one of the biggest takeaways I had in Starlight Farms. The proto draft, which is what we're writing in November, is just you getting the story down on page, start to end. That's it. Doesn't need to be perfect. It's going to need multiple rounds of editing. You might make mistakes. You might skip entire scenes that you don't know how to approach yet. But rather than be bogged down by that one detail that you don't know how to overcome yet, get to the end of your story. I'm going to be saying that all throughout November. That is what we are doing here. By the end of November, you are not going to have a final finished draft ready to send out to the world. If you do, great. I am so happy for you. But for me, writing a 50,000 plus word proto draft, by the end of November, I want to have my proto draft done. I'm not trying to have my final draft done. That's an important distinction. Please keep that in mind. Please keep that in mind. Wolfie says, want to say thank you for making the videos. Your videos, instead of discouraging, motivates me to write. That means a ton, Wolfie. Thank you so much for that. I really appreciate that. The whole idea behind the channel. Stop that. The whole thing behind the channel was that I couldn't find, and this is maybe part of me being like not a always online person, but like I couldn't find the kind of community that I wanted in a writing community. And I have a very specific way of looking at stories, and I wondered if there were other people out there who felt that same way. So writing theory is all built around transparency in writing, giving you all the information you need to know to be supported in your writing journey. I thought that was incredibly important. And then also having fun. Sometimes writing videos are very dry, and I want to make them fun. That's kind of like the two things I'm trying to do. Katie says, why do you call it a proto draft? Oh, Katie. Hold on, let me stretch. About to blow your mind. Kind of like my number one writing theory branded thing that I spout to all corners of the world is the proto draft. The proto draft comes before your first draft. And here's why. So in my own personal experience, when I would sit down to write a story, and I'm writing the very first draft, maybe I have some planning done, maybe I'm just going in and writing. There was always so much anxiety that the first draft that I was writing wasn't good enough. There was always so much of like a comparison kind of thing I was doing. Oh, I just wrote this scene and like my descriptions weren't very good. These books that I read, their descriptions are great. These authors that I love, they do a fantastic job writing. And even in my first draft, which I know it's your first draft, I was almost always convincing myself that I wasn't a good writer. I feel confident in my writing, but something about the first draft, I always felt like it needed to be better than I could make it. And so one day I flipped the switch into my brain and I realized that, you know what? Before I do a first draft, I'm going to do a proto draft. This is a draft where the number one thing about the proto draft is you getting your story down start to finish. And anything that you do between those two bounds is all about getting the information down. You can find a video on my channel about the proto draft. It was made pretty early on the channel's thing. So, you know, I like to think my quality's gotten better, but I highly recommend you watch that video. It talks about how sometimes you have a really hard time starting your first draft because you don't know. You want to have that great opening line. You want to have that fantastic opening image, and you don't quite know it yet, or you don't feel like you can do it justice. Every story that I start with, I write a temporary beginning. I write a start to my story that I know I'm going to come back to and probably change. Because throughout the course of writing my story, I'm going to learn so much more about the plot, so much more about the characters, and so much more about how I want to present the theme in the world. So why try so hard to nail this beginning of my proto draft, my very first try at getting the story down, when I'm going to know so much more by the end of it? That was big for me. Just like write a intro to your story that gets you to all the good stuff, the inciting incident, the journey, the characters, the character interactions, with the knowledge that after you finish your proto draft, you're going to go through and edit all of this anyways and make it better. And then you have a solid first draft. Just like the idea of like taking that anxiety off my shoulders, huge. On top of that, when you get writer's block, when you hit a scene that you don't really know how to execute on, skip it. You're going to edit your story like 7 times. When you come back to edit, you're going to add that scene. Don't lose the progress, the motivation, the drive for your entire draft because you got stuck on one scene. All right, sorry. I could rant about the proto draft. I even have I did a podcast episode with this creator on Instagram called The Plottery. She has the Plotcast. I did a whole episode talking about the proto draft. Wolfie, I know you're probably already gone, but bye. Thank you for joining us. Prairie Girl says, is this getting ready for the National Novel Writing Month November Writing Challenge? We are doing an unaffiliated version, finger guns. But yeah, same idea. We're doing a Novella November is what we're calling it. Yeah, and I'll be doing live streams every weekday. I consider this time slot to be for our friends over in Europe mostly, but of course you're welcome to join. You can follow the link to the Discord down below to see a ton of great information about it. Join the community. We for real have like a freaking blast in these live streams. So Prairie Girl, first thing, glad you found us. I hope that you can join us for future ones too. Stray Bubble says, lots of imposter syndrome. Natural, totally natural. I flipped the switch by comparing it to painting. Yeah. You're going to be covering up all your mistakes with more paint, making it look all nice and shiny and polished. Katie says, I read a theory book about opening lines and paragraphs as a high school. It gave me crippling anxiety. I could do a whole video on the over importance that English classes have given us in the opening line of our stories. Look, I get traditional classical literature, 1984, Fahrenheit 451, have these phenomenal, cool, interesting opening lines. And I'm sure plenty of modern books too. But like, that's nice. But after I read that first line of your book, I'm literally never thinking about it again. I have moved on. Now I want to know about your characters, and you're inciting it. That first line, that opening line to your novel. If you have a really great one, great. But like as a reader, personally, I don't care. If I picked up your book and opened it, I'm not just reading your first line. That's not what convinces me. The blurb on the back of your book, your cover, your title, the first chapter. That's way more detail than a first line. I don't know. That drives me crazy. Prayer Girl says, I found the secret to writing through my story was just writing. Don't overthink it. And you can go back later and fix it. That is the idea of the proto draft. It's putting a name on that entire thought process. And then by putting a name on it and sort of describing it, that is like our chance to even further develop it and make it make sense for people who are still trying to flip that switch in their brain. So Prairie Girl, you're already doing it, right? I call it the proto draft. That's become like a brand thing for me. So now I'm kind of stuck calling it the proto draft. Stray says, I set a goal to write at least 100 words today. I always end up writing more than that though. Totally okay. That's what a lot of people say, is set low goals just so that you can always hit them. Because like, why would you set a goal that is difficult for you to hit, especially Novella November, 30 times? You have a whole other life. I'm not setting a daily word goal. I'm mostly just setting like, I mean, for me, I guess my goal is I'm now held accountable to writing for 2 hours on stream. That's plenty of time for me. I write pretty quickly. Katie says, I tell all of my students to write their intro and conclusion last on their argumentative essays. It's been helpful to apply the same logic to my fiction writing. That makes a lot of sense, because after you've put out all the information and figured it out, isn't that when you want to introduce your point and conclude your point? Oh my God, that makes so much sense. Yeah, I don't know if the way I say it is like, with the proto draft, you're going to edit your story I've probably read Starlight Farms 7 times, front to back, full thing, in my entire process of writing it and editing it and going through and doing big scene edits and then going through and doing little copy line edits and then going through and making sure that all my words were exactly how I wanted them to be. You're going to be doing that a lot. Don't think you have to nail down this one scene in your book on the proto draft the first time that you're experiencing it. Always do the first things last. John Romero, Masters of Doom. There's a lot to learn in video game development, if I'm understanding that correctly. Is John Romero's him and I feel like there was another John with id who did Doom. Can't remember him. But either way, yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense. Especially in video games, right? Video games is even more so. You have to have that first experience of the game convince someone to keep reading. I don't think that extends to books and the idea of like the first words have to convince you to read. John Carmack, that was it. Yeah, I don't know. There's lots of debate around this kind of stuff. It's up to you to interpret it and figure it out how you want. This is just my interpretation. That's all. Is novella another word for short story? Novella, the technical definition is that a novel is like 80,000 to 110,000 words, and a novella is a full individual story that's less words than that. Predominant sort of definitions would say it's like 40,000 words to 70,000 words. But we're not beholden to these. We're not beholden to the rules of these made up word count things. Novella. The big thing why I chose that word is, first, I thought it sounded better than Novella November. And then the second thing is that I want you to set lower word count goals going into this so that you can overachieve, right? Some people in our community are setting their goals at 70,000 words. They're going to try to write 70,000 words over the course of Novella November. I would recommend start small. Starlight Farms Kennel for Talking Dogs. Last time I mentioned it, I swear, link in the description. Starlight Farms, I started out just trying to write 40,000 words. And then I overwrote that as I was doing my editing and adding scenes and tweaking this and that. Start small is my recommendation. So Novella November kind of reemphasizes that point of, don't try to shoot for writing a 100,000 word book this month. Like, if you really want to put in the effort to write, set a lower goal and overachieve it. Do you mind if I discuss the idea of proto-draft in the workshop I'm doing next week? I've been doing a guided research paper workshop for my students who are in the drafting stage. Katie, of course, send me a message on Discord if there's any way that I can help. When I was doing my master's class, I attended my master's class in remotely because I lived up here in Wisconsin, but I was doing a master's program at Texas Tech. One of the things I really was sad that I didn't get to do was to work more in classes. So if there's any way I can help facilitate getting you information for proto-draft stuff, let me know. I will help how I can. 59 says, that's what I think it always comes down to. I think most readers are willing to read a few chapters before dropping, so the opening line is not the be-all, end-all. That's how I feel. And if there are readers out there who read the first line of my book and are not convinced that they want to continue, whatever, that's just fate. They're allowed to, I tell everyone we're in the golden age of reading content now. The fact that, for better or for worse, Amazon has made it so easy for people to self-publish their works, put that out in the world, and for readers to find it. That means you can find all the books that you want to read. If you want a book about magic and talking dogs, brother, I got a great one for you. If you don't want that book and you come across that Amazon page and you don't pick it up, that's just how it goes. But if you wanted to support indie or self-published authors, now is the best time to do so. Whether it's on Amazon, whether it's on ebooks.com, whether it's on Kobo, whether it's on Wattpad, whether it's on whatever platform is out there, you have so many options of finding the story you want to read. We're in the golden age of writing content. And that's just how it is. Exile. I just wrote 14 chapters in my first fantasy novel and I don't know how to progress. Let's talk about it. So here's the deal, Exile. There's a lot of information I don't know, but there is some information I can go ahead and assume. 14 chapters in means you probably got through your opening image. I don't know how long your chapters are, but you probably got through your opening image. You introduced some of your characters. You did your inciting incident and everything changed. And maybe now we've even started our quest. Let me know if I'm right or wrong. Because it sounds to me, Exile, that you're just getting into Act 2 or the middle 50% of your novel. And that's where a lot of people get stuck. Of course, Katie. Thanks for asking. I feel honored. That the proto-draft is extending out. Check out the video that I did on the proto-draft, and then let me know what you think or if you have any questions about it. You can just search Writing Theory Proto-Draft on YouTube, and it should be the first thing. Thank God I can say that now. There was a long time I could say, search anything of mine on YouTube, and it may be in the first page of results. Maybe not. Now I've made it, guys. I've made it. Sometimes I can be the top results. That's hilarious to me. Anyone can write. Anyone can write. Exile says, yes, my friend read my novel, wants to read more of it, but I don't know which way to progress. The middle 50 of your novel, which is kind of like how we colloquially call Act 2 of your novel, is the hardest part to write. The introduction, Act 1 of your story, easy. Here's this cool new world. Here's our characters in their day-to-day life. And then here's something that changes everything, right? And now we have to do X, Y, and Z to put the One Ring in the lava in Mount Doom, or to figure out who the Dragon Reborn is in the Wheel of Time, or to figure out X, Y, and Z, however it is in Game of Thrones. That's all pretty easy to get through. Everything after that point, in that middle 50, that Act 2, is all about sort of character interactions, raising the stakes, point of no return. Here is the biggest short piece of feedback I can give you to help Exile. The number one piece of feedback I can give you, and for anyone who's getting stuck in the middle 50% of your novel, figure out where you need to be in your conclusion, and then figure out 3 major events that contribute to you getting there. Then treat those 3 major events. Let's give you an example, right? I'll use Lord of the Rings as the example, right? Excuse me. So let's say we have Mount Doom that we're trying to get to. Frodo, he's just got the ring. The quest has just been kicked off. He knows what's at stake. How do we get, after our inciting incident where Frodo now has the ring, and then how do we get to Mount Doom? Now this is kind of hard, right? These are 3 books, but like the idea is that, okay, I know where Frodo needs to go. What are the 3 major events that are going to happen as I'm getting there? And then you treat those 3 major events. Let's say we establish the Fellowship of the Ring. Let's say that there is the, what would be the next big one? Frodo and Sam separate from the rest of the group. And then the next 3rd biggest thing is we get to Mount Doom. Then we have the big conclusion. Treat those 3 points like another 3 acts of your story. Each one should have an opening image. Right? So let's say the idea of the Fellowship of the Ring, right? Frodo's got the ring. Now we got to get the Fellowship. Treat that as its own act of a story, meaning it would have an inciting incident. Frodo's leaving what is it? The Shire. We have, that's our opening image. We have the inciting incident where they go to the Prancing Pony. Gandalf's not there, but Aragorn's there. We have the climax, right? Which is going to be being chased by the Nazgul, right? Those dudes in the black robes. Then we have sort of the conclusion. We get saved by Arwen. Is that her name? And then we make it to Rivendell. And then we have our fellowship, right? We broke that one journey into our traditional parts of the scene. Opening image, inciting incident, something, climax, whatever the case may be. Do that 3 times. Treat each one of these major events in the middle 50 like its own sort of act of a story. It's called the idea of story recursiveness. And if you can't identify those 3 things that need to happen before your conclusion, I feel like your knowledge of Lord of the Rings is a bit shaky. Chicken Man, you are right. It is a bit shaky. If you cannot break down 3 major events that happen between the inciting incident of your book and the conclusion of your book, then you just have more planning to do. That's as simple as it gets. So you need to have at least those 3 things. If you watch any sort of Hollywood movie, if you watch any sort of movie that follows that traditional 3-act structure, 25% of our story is like the opening, 50% of our story is like is everything that happens in the middle that's slowly raising the stakes. That's the point of no return. That's allowing our characters to interact. And then the conclusion, like there's typically going to be 3 major events that happen in that middle 50. Take care, Exile. I hope that helps. I like the part in Lord of the Rings where Frodo faced off against Darth Bilbo and Darth Bilbo went, "No, Frodo, I am your uncle." And he went, "No!" And then he said, "Avada Kedavra!" And then Gandalf got beamed up back to the Enterprise. You remember that part? That's what I remember. All right, here's the deal. We got 15 minutes left. Just about. I'm going to kick us off for another 15 minutes of planning. We're going to end strong, where we can say we spent 45 minutes of our live stream doing great planning for Novella November that starts tomorrow. I will be there. If you can't be there, you'll know where the recording is. All that good stuff. Yeah, Gandalf helps save Picard from the Borg. Yeah. I hate this. I hate this conversation. All right, I'm going to put 15 minutes on the timer. We're going to tackle this. If you are done planning, if you don't want to do any more planning, then I don't know what to tell you. If you're already writing, make use of these 15 minutes. Get some words down. Tomorrow it really starts. All right, friends. Mic's going off. Time's going on. Music's coming up. See you on the other side. Well, well, well. All right. The last planning sprint of the day. I feel pretty good about progress today. I feel ready to write. Now, you can tell, looking at my outline here, there's a lot of empty spaces. That's okay. Totally okay. You do not need to know, and I don't think you should try to know every single little thing about your plots. That is, in my opinion, over planning. And unless you really give yourself room to adjust and break off of your plot framework as you uncover more about your characters, I don't think you should plan every single thing. I know that what I have now as a plot framework will most likely be tangential to the actual story that I tell. I'll be taking lots of details, but they may not happen in the exact same way I planned them. Thick9 says, I got my endings sorted out, just need to plan the middle. Hey, you know what? A great time to revisit that idea that your middle 50% of your story can be broken down into 3 acts. At this point, Jeff asks, do you know what your theme is going to be? I'm struggling with what my theme will be. So Jeff, here's the deal. For the longest time, I thought writers go into writing a story always having a theme. I thought that was it had been told to me so many times, especially in English literature classes, that the theme was so important. But the more writing books that I read, the more authors I saw come out saying, you write, and this is specifically here Stephen King, the way that he phrased it, which I think I agree with, which is you write your story first, and then you sort of, as you're telling the story, start to better figure out what the message or the theme is going to be. And then in editing, you just reinforce that theme. And with Stephen King, the way he phrased it was to trim out things that go against the theme. So for the idea of if you're writing your story, in my case, I have kind of uncovered what the idea of my story is going to be. It's going to be the idea of us versus them in a small town setting. There's the town that I live in is, some of the local residents are very vocal about us people who permanently live in this town, this is our home. And all those people who are tourists that come in the summer to play on the lakes and to hike the trails and to do X, Y, and Z, they're taking our resources and then they're leaving when the going gets tough. I noticed that in a lot of small town kind of stuff that I studied and in the town that I live in. So I'm purposely trying to play into that idea for my novel. More writing books are saying, write your story, get a good story down first. Identify then what you're trying to say, what your theme is, if there is a singular theme message. And then as you're editing, keep that in mind and say hey, this scene could be better and better reinforce the theme if I rewrite it in this way. Or this other scene doesn't do much and goes against what I think my theme is. I'm going to edit that in a different way. So that's how Stephen King phrases it. He's not the only one. So if you don't love Stephen King for whatever reason, he's not the only one. Bird by Anne Lamott. I have it up there, which is why I looked back there. Also says, get your story down first. Tell your story. Just characters and plot and setting and how they all interact and work on getting a satisfying story down first. And then start to establish your theme now that you know the kind of story you want to tell. And in editing, kind of just reinforce it. I believe that now. In this case, I told you I have sort of an idea for what I want the theme to be. If you don't have that idea, don't let it stop you from telling your story. Like I said, you're going to be editing it 6-7 different times. That's just going to be one of the things you're going to focus on in editing. 69 says, with themes, you can wait until the theme emerges in the story and then incorporate it into the redraft. A much more succinct way of saying what I very verbosely said. Good job, 69. And themes can also be so abstract it's hard to nail down for inexperienced writers. I hate to start with the theme as beginner advice. I pretty much agree with that. I've been staring at that for a while, yeah. I think, honestly, I do not really consider a theme in my planning process. In this case, I happen to do that just because it is a small town drama and I live in a small town, and that was one of the things I thought I could bring my, not unique, but in this case, I'll say unique-er perspective to that story. I would not worry about a theme. And sometimes if you feel like you can't start writing without having some kind of theme, what you can do is create a very abstract theme that you want to start with, like the idea of like found family. That could be the theme of your novel, and you could take that 1,000 different ways as you better understand your story, and now you want it to be, now your theme is the family that you choose is better than the family that you have. Or should you choose the family that you have? If you could choose, would you choose? Like, you could twist it in more specific ways that you could then further reinforce. I don't normally consider the theme as I'm writing. Chicken Man says, do you know the save the cat method? Do you usually use the beat of a B story character in the beginning of Act 2? Let's pull up some save the cat stuff. I am very familiar with save the cat. Let me see exactly what part of the beat sheet you're looking at. Where we at? Give me a good save the cat image here. Got this guy. B story character in the beginning of Act 2. Introduce B story character. I probably wouldn't so much say like I'm going to introduce another character specifically for the B story. Personally, I would say like introducing the B story is maybe more so like, you know, I don't think you need to have necessarily a character specifically for that. I have seen stories that will do things like, here's like a whole different perspective of a character we're going to see a little bit of throughout the rest of the book, and that like paints the story in a different light. Or I've seen, I don't know, I see the B story being introduced in Act 2. Yes, I wouldn't always say it needs to be like a character. What it means in our case here, let me see if I can pull a good example out. A lot of my examples are a little too on the nose for a B story kind of thing. In my story, the best equivalent I can give you, right? The B story in my story is like this romantic subplot. So in my case, all throughout like the inciting incident, I'm not necessarily breaking away from finding this body so that I can be like, oh, look how lovey-dovey these two characters are. Instead, I'm getting through the action that needs to set up storyline A, which is the more important one for the reading experience. That's why it's called storyline A. And then, if you can see here in my Scrivener, I'll go down here. In part 2 of my story, for the B story, that's where I'm really working character interaction. Part 1 of this romancing the beat plot framework says like, oh, introduce your characters, let them have a meet cute, like make it a place where like now they're stuck together. In my case here, if I scroll back up here, I am spending way more focus on setting up the mystery story than I am setting up a romantic story, right? But after this part 2, I'm really focusing on sticking these two characters together as we're understanding the events of storyline A and letting them sort of flourish, right? I'm leaning now more into this storyline B, which would be kind of what the Save the Cat thing is saying. Because now I've set everything up, I can have these two things kind of playing out together. That's my interpretation. 69 says, yeah, in movies, there's usually a new character involved in the B story plot, but it doesn't have to be that way. If you naturally are planning out your story and it makes sense to include a character to sort of help explore this other story that you want to tell, don't avoid doing it just because I said I don't do it that way. If it naturally makes sense to you, then do it. But also, when you flip that around, if you are understanding your story in a specific way and you're following a beat sheet or a plot framework, and it says to do something that doesn't make sense to you, don't do it. That plot framework's meant to be a guide, not like a set of laws. Chicken said, okay, I got hung up on that because in the book, she always talks about a character bringing the B story. Yeah, you know, here is the downside to Save the Cat, in my opinion. I love Save the Cat. I think I needed a plot framework like that out there to exist to understand how to pace a story well. That's the big thing about Save the Cat, is that it's not just here's 3 acts, tell your story. It's here's, 3 acts, but 10% in your story, you should have accomplished this. And you should introduce this thing 15% into your story. And having that simple guide was extremely important for me to understand that, maybe I don't need to hit all those percentage marks that it presents exactly. But the fact that I had that guidance helped me understand. I totally agree. My inciting incident should happen 10% into my story. And I totally agree. We should understand what's happening in a story as we go into Act 2 around this percentage. That percentage value really helped me. Adjust it if you need to. Cut things out if you want to. Add things if you need to. 69 says, the most recent movie I saw was Deadpool versus Wolverine, and the B-plot characters where the other hero is trapped in the void, which was the B-plot. A great example. You'll find a lot of movie examples because Save the Cat was predominantly a screenplay technique. And that's why Save the Cat and the novel version is his own specific book versus the screenwriting version. Remember, you are the author. If you want to change something about the plot framework that you're referencing, if you understand your story in a different way, make the changes. Do not lose control of your story because you're following a plot framework that says something that maybe you don't understand or don't agree with or incorporates this element and that wasn't originally something you were going to include in your story. If you are naturally coming up with those sort of things for how you want to tell the story, if it makes sense in your head and you see it on the plot framework, feel free. Don't put yourself in an uncomfortable position because your plot framework says to do so and now you're stumped. Hope that makes sense. All right, that is about all I have for you today. Let me tell you about what's happening next. Novella November starts tomorrow. Let's freaking go. I'm so excited. I am ready to write. I've over-planned at this point, which means I'm really giving myself ability to diverge from what my plot framework says as I'm exploring my story. I highly recommend you do something similar. The hype, let's go. I ended up just creating some characters in the larger universe of my story. Sure. Feel like writing a pirate story and a character encounters a temporary clue in the beer pot and sings and eventually moves on from them, potentially. And Katie says, hype, let's go. I love it. I'm going to give you 3 quick tips for success in November. 3 quick tips here. Number 1, the number 1 thing, touch your story every day. You see this advice a lot. Open up your writing program, get 100 words down, get 50 words down. If that's the bare minimum you can do, you at least did something, and that feels good. Number 2, allow yourself to not be perfect. Can't write a certain day, totally fine. This is not an exercise. This is not P90X. Who here remembers P90X? This is not P90X where if you miss a day, it feels like you're completely off program. Wolvie, hey, we're just shutting everything down. This is not P90X. If you miss a writing day, don't feel like it throws off everything. My goal is to get you excited to write as many times as you can, to make progress fun. All right? I will be here 5 days a week writing on stream. If you have a hard time sitting down to write and you have the free time available to join the live stream, of course you are welcome to do so. I will at least give you dedicated time to write, even if you only do one of those writing sprints. That's okay. Totally okay. If you want to have guided writing for whatever reason, I don't normally do guided writing. I just put on some noise canceling headphones, put on some lo-fi music, and I still do like this Pomodoro style thing. Like where you write for, in our case, it's going to be like 20 minutes and then 10-minute break and then 20 minutes and 10-minute break. That's how I prefer to write. So this live thing, this is different for me. If you like live writing groups like this, you can always watch the recordings. You can join the live stream. Wolfie says, will it be around the same time each day or as today? Tuesdays and Thursdays, this is the time slot that I do. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I do a different time slot. It's still 2 hours. Check out the link to the Discord to go find the schedule and come join us. It's a lot of fun over there. By the way, could it be that the stream started 1 hour too early? It could not be. It could not be. I set these hours because we have some people international who, like in our normal live stream, it's like 3 a.m. for them or midnight or something, and they can't join, and they would like to. So this is my effort to be like, hey, it's evening for you in Germany. Come join. My schedule's going to be a bit jumbled next month, but I'll be sure to show up as often as I can. Just Guy, that is already going above and beyond. Showing up when you can, 10 out of 10. You do not need to make it to every live stream. I will always be here to try to help, though. In the playlist in the description, I link off to a playlist where I'm going to put all of these recordings, including all of our planning streams. And that is also where you'll be able to find every November Novella live stream. Yeah, see, Wolfie says, on the other days, it's 1 a.m. for you. That's exactly why I do this time slot. I really want to make sure, like, I never thought writing theory would ever be, like, have fans internationally, but I'm willing to put in the effort to try to accommodate that. So this is me, like, really trying to make sure that, you know, everyone gets a chance. Just throw a sprint bot in the Discord. We do have one, Katie. In fact, this would probably be a great month to really push for people utilizing it. We have, I think it's called Sprinto. It's in the writing category. Yeah. Check it out in the Discord. Yeah, it's in there. It's in there. People will definitely be using it. I might try to really put a message out there to be like, hey, go do it. All right. But that's it. I got to go have some lunch with my wife. Thank you guys so much for joining. I had a great time. I'm so excited for this month. I want to do every single thing that I can to help you finish your story. Number one, I'm going to be here on the live streams. Number two, I will be in the Discord, and I want to hear about the progress that you make. If you sit down and you write 1,000 words someday, put it in the Discord. Let's celebrate those achievements. Trick or treat, I choose treat. I'm a treat kind of guy. All right, guys, have a great rest of the day. I am excited to see what happens next in your novel. November won't be enough for me to end it, but it will keep me going. If you can get 70% of the way through your novel in November, that's big. We got this. Let's go. Take care, everyone.